Starting to roll in. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight and spending your evening with us. My name is Amali, and I'm the events director at Books Are Magic. So before we head into tonight's event, I just have a few quick housekeeping notes to get out of the way. First, I'd like to let everyone know that closed captions are available for this evening's conversation. They might be on automatically, but in case they're not, you should see a CC button on your Zoom controls, either at the bottom control bar or by clicking more if you're on mobile or tablet to turn them on. Second, there will be time for our panelists to take a few of your questions towards the end of tonight's event. So if you have questions at any point during the conversation, please use the Q&A button on your Zoom controls to submit them. And lastly, if you enjoyed tonight's event, you can show your support for these wonderful writers by purchasing their books. In a second, I will paste a link in the chat where you can buy the books of some of tonight's judges, along with all the other books competing in this year's tournament of books. All right, that is all from me. Now I have the pleasure of introducing award-winning author Rosecrans Baldwin, tonight's host and the co-organizer of the Tournament of Books. All right, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Books Are Magic. I'm going to represent and say I've got my Books Are Magic sweatshirt on, you know, just the good merch. So welcome, everybody. If you are here, there's a very good chance you know what the Tournament of Books is. I'm going to explain it a little bit for the chance that people are here who may not know what it is. For people who know it long enough, they will understand why I'm drinking tequila at this point. It is a big thing that we put on. It takes months of planning, and it has been, for our 19th edition, which feels insane to say, a really exciting year. So very, very glad to have everyone here. And let me just sort of lay out what we're doing. So today, actually, let me do a quick thank you. One, to Books Are Magic, amazing partner, beautiful stores in Brooklyn next time you're in New York. Two, Field Notes, our presenting sponsor, beautiful, beautiful little guides. I use them myself. This one has some random notes from a press event that I went to today. And then finally, but most importantly, we are able to do this, myself, Andrew Womack, my co-organizer, everyone else involved, because of our sustaining members. It is not a joke that we are able to do this because so many people have supported us and are supporting us right now. So thank you. If you are watching this and you're a sustaining member, it is a huge deal. So here's the plan. We're going to have just a fun conversation about all things TOB. We have joining me today, we have two of our commentators this year. One, I'm literally meeting for the first time in Zoom person, you could say, is Alana Muhammad. Alana is a writer and a librarian from Queens. She has been kicking butt with our very own Mev Gallagher. Mev, how long have you and I known each other at this point? Are you on mute?
I'm unmuted since 2006.
Sick.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mev,
hi, man.
the TOB folks will know Mev as our sort of, I don't know, our community moderator, amazing voice in the commentariat. Also, though, this year as a commentator, Mev is also a librarian, a recent graduate of Queens College, and is an all-around badass. Then we are joined also by two of this year's judges. We have Christina Orlando. Christina, thank you. Christina is the books editor for Tor.com. Recipient, forgive me, Christina, I'm just going straight off your regular bio. Recipient of the 2019 Spotify Sound Up Grant for People of Color in Podcasting, and a 2021 Publishers Weekly Star Watch honoree. Christina also lives in Brooklyn. And then we have Calvin Kasulki. Calvin is the author of one of my favorite novels of the past couple of years. Several people are typing, but Calvin is actually a judge this year in the Tournament of Books, despite, we're going to get into this in a little bit, but Calvin's book last year was a huge commentariat favorite in the Tournament of Books, so it is very special to have Calvin joining us. And then finally, we have John Warner. John Warner has been with the Tournament of Books practically since inception, conception, whatever it is. John is an
First year.
author.
From the first year, I was a judge the first year.
Amazing. And look at,
Yeah.
you know, and both of us, so much gray hair. John is an author. John is a columnist of the Chicago Tribune. He has a great Substack about all things books and publishing. And John has an alter ego known as the Bibli Oracle. If people haven't heard of this before, it's where in his column with the Chicago Tribune, you can write in with the 5 most recent books you've read. John, it's the 5 most recent works of fiction or any books?
Any books.
Okay, you tell him the 5 most recent books you've read, and he will recommend your next book based on his vast knowledge of contemporary literature. So if we have time at the end here, we are going to try to put John on the spot for some live Bibli oracling. So if you are interested in the oracle divining what you want to read next, when the Q&A opens up, go in there and list your 5 most recent books you've read, and I will pick 1 or 2 if we have time, and we'll see the magic that John can conjure. And yeah, man, like very quickly, if you don't know what the Tournament of Books is, we have done this for 19 years. It sounds like a tournament. It's kind of not. We feel that the idea of saying one book is better than another or one is the best of the year is inherently stupid. But the founding principle of the Tournament of Books was that if you ask people to take 2 works of fiction and read them side by side and pause a moment and think about what they value in those books and why they like them, like perhaps one more than other, what does it say about them as a reader? And what does it say about the books they read? And so for 19 years, every March, we have conducted this weird madcap month-long discussion about art and fiction and publishing. And as long as we're doing this, that's all it's going to be. Well, not all, but that's what it's going to be. So I know it looks like blood sport. I know we sometimes use language that makes it sound silly like that. But what we value and treasure is this huge community that has built up around the idea of celebrating contemporary fiction. I've talked a lot. I am now going to talk a lot less. So let's start with this. I'd love to start with the judges, Christina, Calvin. Christina, if you don't mind, I'd love to start with you, but Calvin, and also everybody, feel free to chime in. This is just fun time. I'm having tequila. We're just having a conversation. But so Christina, Calvin. Christina, can you give everyone listening an idea of just the behind the scenes, like what happened? I know we sent you some books in the mail. What was it like to sort of just be, you know, have these books thrown at you and to dig in with them?
It was really, really lovely, actually, because I received my books over sort of the holiday break, which is my favorite time to be reading anyway. And honestly, because I read so much for work, and I'm sure a lot of us do, it's always nice to read for pleasure, and reading outside of the genre that I work in is always an absolute treat. So I was very excited about that. And it was kind of a perfect situation. I was at home. I had the heat turned on. I had, a nice drink and cuddled up on the couch with new books. And it was great. Like, what's better than that?
Now, you had 2 works of historical fiction to grapple with. You were working with Mercury Pictures Presents and The Book of Goose. Can you sort of, what was it like? Did you already know going into it how you were going to sort of weigh one against the other?
I didn't. And part of that is because I work in science fiction and fantasy, and I don't get to read literary fiction as often as I would like. I do love that kind of thing, but it just is, work is what it is. So there is an element of, well, I haven't been reading in this genre for a very long time. And I don't tend to read a lot of historical fiction as it is. Yeah. So I knew that it was going to be something new, and I knew that it was just going to be based on vibes, honestly. And that's kind of how it ended up being. I connected with one more than I connected with the other, and that ended up being my choice. But there is an element of, I know what I like when it comes to stylistic writing. I know what I like when it comes to character and storytelling elements. So that kind of transcends genre, and I knew to look out for those things.
I mean, if I remember your judgment accurately, I feel like you really connected with the prose of Goose, and that sort of took you over the line in terms of choosing one or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, I'm a sucker for poetry, so that'll always take my heart over everything else, for sure.
What was when you finished both books, what was it feeling like? Did you feel like, I was a judge way back in the day of the tournament, but this is a very different event from those days. Had you heard of the tournament before? As you were deciding, did you feel any pressure? Like, what was it like emotionally?
I had heard of the tournament before. The biggest issue for me has always been the element of like, I know what I like, but that doesn't mean that my opinion holds the most weight or that everyone should be listening to me. And as someone who works with reviewers and talks about books a lot, you have to kind of sort out, why didn't I connect with this thing? Was it an element of the book, or was it just not my vibe? Was this book, was there something wrong, or was it just not written for me? Because those are two very different things. And I think all critics have to sort of suss that out when they're dealing with writing about books or looking at books in this way. So I think afterwards, there was one of them that I didn't really connect with as much. And I did sit with it for a little bit and go back to it after a while, because I thought maybe I'm just not in the right headspace for it. Maybe I had just come off reading the other one and had kind of a book hangover. So there are all sorts of elements that go into that. And at the end of the day, it was about the prose for me more than anything else. But I wanted to make sure that I gave both books as good of a shot as I possibly could.
Yeah, totally.
Sort of
listen, the book hangover is real. This is, Calvin, can you jump in here a little bit? I'm just wondering, what was it like for you emotionally? Like, same question. When you had these two books, you were dealing with your sudden disappearance and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Is that right?
Yeah. Christina's already said everything I think I'm going to say more eloquently, but no, it's the same thing. I have enormous respect for critics, too much to be one myself, because I know I don't have that level of skill that I would like to have. And so it was, I think emotionally, I was just a little bit daunted by, like Christina said, sort of going on vibes, and then knowing I was going to have to sort of retroactively justify what the vibes were, and to try to sort of suss out what had made me connect with one more than the other. And at various points in reading, I started with Tomorrow and then I read Notes. And so at various points, they, like, one was pulling ahead of the other as I was reading one, which was like sort of interesting. Like it was kind of neck and neck at parts, because if one starts slumping, you're thinking about the other one. You're like, I don't know. In the middle of Tomorrow got pretty cool, and so you're like kind of micro experiencing it. And so after I finished them both, I gave myself like a couple days to like sort of breathe and walk around and sort of like see if I could return to homeostasis before like diving into a judgment.
I mean, taking a couple days is tough too, because for the audience, we start sending books to judges in December, but the judges are under a lot of time pressure, especially with big books. And Tomorrow, which I now want to call Terminator 3 or something, is it's not small, man. And you only get 2 weeks. Was that on your mind, or was that,
I did everything. I mean, yes, but I also sort of just forced myself to, I think I read both of them in like a 3 to 4 day span. Like that was just sort of like, this is what I am doing with the time I have outside of like activities of daily living, is like getting through these. Not to say getting through like either of them was some kind of a chore, but just like, okay, there is a timeline here and I have to meet it. And frankly, it's kind of nice to let the book impact you at that speed. Because I was also trying to read pretty deeply. Like I wasn't trying to do like a speed read or anything. So it was, letting them both sort of concuss you in a short period of time is actually, I found kind of useful in a way that like a leisurely week or two to read a couple of different, like if you asked me in a month, like what book did you start last month with? I'd have been like, I could read at the beginning of this month. I don't think that's true. So it was sort of better to do it in a condensed time for this kind of exercise, I found.
Totally. Well, so Calvin, but also Christina, we asked you to sort of take two books that you're reading, back to back and sort of compare them and think about what matters to you. And again, to the audience, we don't tell the judges how to read or how to evaluate. The most important thing is that they have, and then articulate for all of us why they made the decision. The criteria is entirely yours. And obviously there's been all kinds of, shenanigans over the years. But so Christina, Calvin, do you find yourself in your normal reading life doing this? Like comparing, if you grab two novels in a month, do you find yourself looking at them in light of one another?
It depends on if they're comparable. I think this exercise forces you into a kind of sort of literary pareidolia where you're looking for ways to compare and contrast that may or may not be there. And in this case, I felt that they very much were. Like this wasn't finding shapes in clouds, but I think I'm more inclined to do that in my regular reading life if I'm not going to compare like a Barbara Tuchman work to like a Mayaville or something. Like actually that's a terrible comparison because you could absolutely do that. But what I mean is like some like a fiction book versus like a non, like I'm not necessarily drawn to doing that in the same way. I also, I don't know. I feel like I only know what my opinion about a book is if a friend's like, "What have you been reading?" And suddenly I'm like furious about something I did not know I was mad about personally or something. So sometimes that's the best way to do it.
I know, that's right. That's right. I mean, it actually like calls you to sort of formulate that opinion or be like, "Oh, I had these feelings. Let's now put them into words." Christina, what about you?
I would say I only compare books if I'm like feeling particularly mean-spirited and salty about something. Or, sort of comparing within an author's body of work is a common feeling too. And I think all of us do that a little bit. But I read so much that I do have a little bit of a strategy now. So I usually read one front list and then one back list. So it's a little bit more difficult to be in that headspace where I feel like I'm comparing contemporaries.
Yeah.
And that kind of prevents that. But, as someone who loves books and I do like love what I do and I love reading, I want to approach everything with as much of an open heart as I can. So you sort of try to extract that instinct as much as possible.
Yeah, you want to be open-hearted, but also have time to be salty too. I mean, all of us are readers. # salt life, I guess, is the bumper sticker. I'll talk to Andrew about that. Let's pull in some commentators. Let me start with Mev and Alana. Alana, it is Alana, not Alana, right? I'm not screwing that up too bad?
Got that right.
Okay. So Mev, you've been with us for a while, so let me ask Alana first. Alana, what do you think? Or what do you think? Because we're in the midst of it right now. We're like deep in it.
We are deep in it. I will say that it often depends on the judgment. Some judgments I'm like, oh, they really like got in the weeds with the book. And I really appreciate it when judges can like be thoughtful about why they do or don't like a book, because very often it is vibes. But
yep.
Sometimes when they get very theoretical with it, I'm like, I have a hard time latching on, and I don't want to like put words in their mouth or anything. So I mean, it is kind of nerve-wracking. It's fun because I get to do it with Mav, who clearly we're very close. But it is also nerve-wracking because you want to like respect what the judges have like put on the paper. And you also don't want to bring too much of your own reading of books if you have read the books to your like commentary.
Especially when you disagree with them.
Yeah.
Can I ask Alana and Mev a question that I get asked a lot, and I'm curious if their experience is the same?
Please.
Do you guys, when Rosecrans sends you a judgment, is the first thing you do scroll to the bottom and see what won, or do you read it carefully from the top and delay the gratification?
I read from the top, and
Yeah.
I like to be surprised.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sometimes
Oh, no way.
judgment
No
that,
way.
like,
No way.
neck and
The
neck.
first thing I do is look at the outcome and be like, oh, come on, or yes, like fist pump. Like Christina broke my heart with her judgment. Although I had not read Book of Goose at the time I received the judgment, and Kevin and I commented on it. I have since read it, and I may have to rescind everything I said because I actually now would have chosen Book of Goose where Mercury Pictures presents. But
Oh,
that's interesting.
shit.
Kevin and I know Kevin is the same as me. He scrolls down and says who won. Maybe it's the basketball March Madness fans in us or something. I don't know.
We have like opposite approaches.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I don't want because especially if I am gonna have an opinion about it, like if it's two books I'm like whatever about, then it's fine. But like the Manhunt one in particular, like that book is very like precious to like not just me, like a lot of people here. Like that one, like I really, yeah, that's like my number one, and so I didn't want my feelings about the decision to cloud how I received the decision. Like I wanted to be able to think about it with an open mind before I like got really happy or really cranky, and then like just like let the judge have their say, and then work through my own feelings and maybe cry a little and then I'm mentally ill, it's fine, and then then go from there. But like it's I don't it even when I don't know and I'm just reading it like today, I didn't know what was going to happen, and just I don't skip ahead because I like to see the judge lay out their arguments and give them the chance to win me over or not.
Yeah. Let me interrupt for a second, for everyone watching, just a reminder in the Q&A, if you have questions, we're going to jump in about 10 minutes to just sort of fielding questions. I'm going to pick out some goodies, but if you have questions for anyone on the panel here, questions about the tournament, whatever, please throw them in there. And again, if you want to see John Warner squirm under the pressure of oracling, list your 5 most recent books. Okay, so Mev, to you, question, you've been at this for a while. What was it like to step forward from behind the curtain this year and become one of the commentators?
Well, I mean, I did it last year too, right?
Shit.
Remember?
Oh, I'm so tired.
It's okay. Everyone, you know what? If anything gets retained by like our COVID Swiss cheese brains, I'm proud of us, like as a species. So it's fine, no big deal.
Okay.
But it was a lot more this year.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I mean, you gave us like I don't know, almost half of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was a lot more intense, and also just like finishing grad school, and like I was in a weird mental place, so it was a lot harder this year. But also because I dragged like an actual friend into it as opposed to being like assigned excited readers. So like that both gave me more freedom to be like, I don't know how to do this, Aldana, and then also like guilt because I wanted her to have a good time, because like you all should know how like smart and interesting Alana is, and so it was it's a little harder every year too, I guess, just because I feel like the more you get invested in it, you care more about how you present your own thoughts, I guess, and being respectful, I guess, of say like opinions you don't agree with, like is different when you are representing like the institution, you know, like you have a responsibility to the judge, you have a responsibility to like the authors, especially say if like it was a book you suggested, like you have a responsibility to your co-commentator, and then I also feel like a responsibility to like the commenters, like to give them something to, you know, extra to think about, for example, or maybe like take the heat off. You know, there's a lot of like emotional labor that goes into this.
There's a lot of emotional labor that goes into this. And you, Alana, John have done, Kevin, an incredible job this year. Not to mention, I mean, that's the best thing for me to watch this all happen, is that the judges put so much freaking care into their essays. They take so much, frankly, like labor. And it's not like we're paying them a lot of money. And again, like people think, I ran into someone recently who thought the Tournament of Books was like a real event with a real office somewhere, and we had all these people. And again, it's just like people with computers. We all have day jobs, but whatever. John, let me flip it to you for a second. And I've seen that we've gotten some good questions, so we will get to questions in a second. I'm just going to throw out one of the readers' questions right now, because I think it's more of a comment than a question. Does Calvin know we are all obsessed with his book? This could be awkward if he doesn't know. So Calvin, that's just, you know, do you know this, that they're obsessed with your book?
So I did read the comments of my judgment because I had a feeling that people were going to be mad. And then I saw an immense amount of inside jokes about my own book. And the penny kind of dropped. I perhaps don't know the depth of this, but I went into the comments sort of like the first person who's really mad at me, I'm going to click out of this, and I was pleasantly surprised and also not a little bit confused.
You know, actually, before I ask John some questions, let me just quickly ask you, were you aware last year that your book was one of the books in the Tournament of Books?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, very much.
Okay. And
it was my great pleasure to get trounced by Patricia Lockwood. Truly like an honor just to be nominated. There is no irony in this. I know it's hard with how I speak to know, but like sincerely, like anytime I get to be in a conversation with her, I am punching way above my weight. So that was thrilling.
that is so cool. And when did you, I already, as a writer, I feel my own cringe factor in asking this, but did you read along the judgments, or as your book, or judgment as your book was in contention? Were you following along?
Yes. I was eagerly awaiting the judgment, and you know, you're mildly disappointed, but again, it's Patricia Lockwood. I'm like, yeah, great, yup, absolutely. That I agree. You know, like I had to sit there and be like, yeah, that's more than fair. I think I might say the same thing. Yeah, not cool. So, well, you know,
I mean, that book is just the commentary at, you know, I mean, I don't know, people only, I guess Andrew and I are sort of the only ones really privy to this knowledge, but there are a lot of people in the commentariat, and there are thousands of people who are following along the tournament who are not participating in the comments at all. And it's just, I've heard so many people who discovered your book through the tournament and just flat out loved it, which was exciting because as someone who loved it, it actually was Mev who introduced it to me. It was just fabulous. John Warner,
thank you.
Why are you still doing this?
Oh, I mean, it's fun. I mean, there's a million reasons why. Like there's a chance to read books that I otherwise would not have known about, right? Like Calvin's book is one of those last year where it's like I was aware of the book, but the inevitable triage of writing primarily about front list books, and it's like, what are you going to write about? What are you not going to write about? And it's like, okay, I was intrigued, but didn't get there. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have to read this book now, which is awesome, right? Like I love the part of year where my reading is dictated by the tournament, right? As soon as you guys give me the short list, it's like, okay, now I have these books I'm going to read. Mev's comment about how now that she has Alana, that it's sort of different. This is sort of like one of my favorite times of year to like get back in touch with Kevin too, right? We have these We both used to live in Chicago. We don't anymore. We don't see each other that often, but we talk more over the couple months we're working on these things than any other time. And really, the other big factor for me over the years, and I say this as somebody who judged in the very first year and did a horrendously bad job. I chose Tom Wolfe's I Am Charlotte Simmons as the winner over, I can't remember the name of the book, but it was by Louis de Bernier, the guy who wrote Captain Corelli's Manual. It was like a beautiful, subtle, sort of historical piece. And I chose just this really pretty awful, out of touch Tom Wolfe novel.
Tom Wolfe goes to a sorority for a week.
Right, and channels a 19-year-old sorority girl. Right. I chose it simply because I said it entertained me more and wrote some sort of glib comment. And thank God there wasn't a commentariat back then. But over the years, the depth and insight of the judging has become some of my favorite reading about books of the year. And then to have the chance to respond to it in comments or read, it's awesome now that Kevin and I don't do every commentary, because we really used to run ourselves ragged trying to write these things and not repeat ourselves and this kind of stuff. Now to see like other people attacking the comments in the same way and the commentary growing, it's just amazing. I mean, and part of that is I think it brings people in to write about books who may not be critics writing about books, but are passionate about books and believe in books and have interesting things to say about books. But like me, I think Calvin and Christina are this way too. Like, I don't really write book reviews because I don't have the guts really
same here.
To do that. I'll write an enthusiasm about a book I decided I already loved, but that's not a review. So I think it brings those voices in, and the first thing I do in the morning during the tournament is click on the matchup, read what's up. I can usually purge my brain of what happened of the ones I wrote the comment on, and I can read them fresh. So yeah, I mean, I can't imagine not doing it. I know you send Kevin and I an email every I don't know, October or November, like you guys in this year. And I think it takes us about 35 seconds to say yes. And it will forevermore, as far as I'm concerned.
That's very cool. I mean, I personally find yes, I read book reviews. Yes, I'm trying to stay current in the scene, but I also, some of my favorite literary criticism is reading the judgments each year of the tournament as they come in, and then reading what the commentariat has to say, because it is just as I don't know, and I feel like I'm pretty well versed, a larger community of hardcore readers coming together to hash out their feelings and thoughts about contemporary fiction. I mean, I haven't seen it yet online. It's something that sort of compares to the TOB, which is remarkable, seeing that we have all gathered together to celebrate an award named after David Sedaris's brother, and we continue to threaten our winners with a live rooster. Again, no one has accepted. They are all, lame. Take the rooster. John, here's a question. We're going to sort of shift into questions for everybody from the audience, but this one's specifically for John. John, would you mind just summing up how you feel about the movie Three Billboards?
I guess, did my commentary about that go out already? That is the worst movie in the history of movies. I mean, it actually infuriates me. I did not talk to a friend of mine for 6 months after he insisted on defending the movie. It's a phony piece of shit from start to finish. And I just couldn't, I'm a pretty mild-mannered person, but I'm opinionated, but I try not to take these things too far. But the vehemence with which he was defending this film as a great masterpiece of human feeling, I couldn't take it. It made me see him in a new light. It wasn't like he did something really bad, like voted for Trump, but it was close. I mean, it was close. It was like almost that kind of severing of a friendship. We're back now. We purposely have not talked about Banshees of Inisherin because I don't want to cause another rift, but yeah, it's awful. Thank you. Thank you for asking, whoever asked that. Got me all worked up again.
I think that was Phyllis. Okay, John, I'm gonna let you go into your special preparation mode to begin divining the oracling, but here's a question for the judges. I think actually several people have asked something similar. So Calvin, Christina, how do you read the comments? One person asked, how do you resist responding? Another person, where did it go? I think it's, do you read the comments on your judgment?
I don't know how to read, so no. I've never read a book in my life. No, I think as a person of color and a non-binary person, I have learned to never read comments on anything ever. They tend to be horrible situations for marginalized people in general, and also when it comes to art and criticism, it tends to be a horrible place. So never in my life will I read a comment section.
No one misgenders anybody in my comments section.
That's good.
I will boot you. Not even the naughty step, you're just gone. That's like a very low bar. I just want to say, it's a safe space for everyone. Especially judges, they're doing all the work. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, Mev, you do a lot of work. It's literally, Mev and me and Andrew somewhat, but Mev, it's reading every single comment, and I hope, but also again, the commentariat has really found a very sweet spot, I feel like, in sort of respecting one another for the most part. And anyway, Calvin, comments?
I did, in part because I trusted if I was ever going to read it anywhere, and Christina, I hold your policy as a trans guy and as a person who values the gray matter I have retained. Generally, don't follow that rule. Including my own, most book reviews. My thought is that what happens on Goodreads is about my book is not my business. That is Goodreads' business. And God bless for good and for ill. But in this case, I sort of trusted the vibes of this comment section, and had a feeling that, again, I was ready to bail at any, hand never leaving the mouse to click out the minute something got a little spicy, but nothing was spicy because it's moderated with an iron fist, and so it was mostly delightful. And people who disagreed in normal human ways, which is often sort of what drives you away from a comment section, is that it in no way resembles human conversation. And in this case, it very much did. It's people being like, oh, having normal thoughts. So it was actually pretty edifying until a bunch of people started doing Dusty Stick, and then I was confused. But again, it wasn't bad.
There's a lot of inside lore, inside jokes, but that's really cool to hear, Calvin. I'm personally really glad to hear that. That's very cool. Someone asked a question, which is how do you prevent judges from leaking their judgments, or even the books they received would be a spoiler? And has it ever happened, or any close calls? It has definitely happened twice. I'm sure Andrew is listening right now, so I will try to keep myself somewhat tight-lipped. There was a person one year who posted a photo of their books, I believe, on Instagram in a story. And because a bunch of people in the commentariat are following the judges closely to sort of get an inkling of what might happen, they suddenly had an idea of what books were being judged and perhaps how this person felt about it. There was also a year where we had to reach out to someone on Twitter because they had figured something else out. It's come close. We've almost had the tournament ruined twice. But generally, we just sort of reach out to the judges. I send a very obnoxious amount of emails, and a lot of them are sort of saying, please keep this tight-lipped, and please don't blog about this, and please don't tell your grandmother, and yada, yada, yada. Mev, can you think of any that sort of almost blew things up?
No, but I haven't been behind the scenes that long. I was a judge in 2010, and I told my mom, but that's because she wanted my books, she still has them, Mom, which is fine. You can have them. They're here. Say hi to my parents.
Hi,
I swear my indie bookseller to secrecy when I sort of swoop in and order 10 books, and they're like, "Why are you ordering 10 books all in one fell swoop?" And they know of the tournament of books. So I'm like, can't tell anybody, but these in a few weeks you're going to hear that these are the shortlist. My memory is we don't know the shortlist all that much before the public, right? what's the gap between us having it and the public knowing?
I feel like Andrew and I have the short list about a week before you and Kevin and Mev and Nosley and sort of the other people that we sort of consider the organizing circle. Also shout out Nosley. Yeah, I mean, I see in the Q&A, there's a bunch of questions about how the long lists and short lists get picked. And truthfully, and I understand that it is both, it can be very infuriating, it can be joyous, it could not be more ad hoc. And I stress this, I try to stress this every time I can publicly, that it is just, we are all big readers, we are all big bookstore people, and it's just, you know, a bookseller recommends, a friend recommends, a mother-in-law recommends, someone on the beach recommends, and we are just trying to read as much as possible throughout the year, and just looking again in that arbitrary process of what moves us, what connects with us, what do we feel is exciting to talk about, yeah, man, it's arbitrary. So if your favorite book, to the audience, if your favorite book didn't make the short list this year, you know, apologies if it didn't make the long list. If your favorite long list book didn't make the short list, it's a little bit of a dance.
I mean, I think, I don't know if this is giving away too much. I think you ask each of us, like, what is the one book you'd really, really, really want in the tournament, right? And I'm not sure it always makes it.
Yep,
but
that's right.
There's sort of like a hierarchy. I think mine this year was Mercury Pictures Presents, which was knocked out in the first round thanks to Christina. But but
I've never done anything wrong in my life.
You have not. You have not.
But
you
again,
didn't do anything wrong here either.
But again, not at all. But I rescinded all because I would have, like, if I had read Book of Goose before the tournament started, that would have become my, like, this book has to be in there, right?
Oh,
so
wow.
it really is, as you say, it really is ad hoc, and I think it's a lot of depending on, you know, the group of people you solicit opinions from, and then the group of people, the people you solicit opinions from.
Yeah.
You know, there's books in the tournament every year. Even as somebody who, like, tries to stay on top of the stuff as much as anyone humanly possible, writing about basically new books every week for the Tribune and at my Substack, there's books that show up in the long list that I've never even heard of. I didn't even know they were published. And I think it just points to the impossibility of trying to find the best book in the country.
And there's no best book. I mean, that's the whole point, right? I mean, we're trying to pull in books in translation. We're trying to books from indie publishers. You try to pull in mega bestsellers, blah, blah, blah. It is getting close to time to wrap this up. John, do you feel like putting on your Swami hat and biblioracling for, well, I sent you one or two, I sent you three, I think. I don't know.
There's three. Okay. Yeah, I can do this because you gave me a little heads up.
You can do this.
So this first one is, I don't have names, but the books are Big Bed Wolf, Spark of Fire, Night Crawling, Old Good Guy's Dreaming, Book of Goose. Of course, we're going to get a lot of tournament books because of people reading. For this reader, whoever you are, I'm recommending a book that I would think I'll be insisting is in next year's tournament, but we'll see how my reading goes over the rest of the year. This book, Big Swiss, by Jen Began, I just thought was just unbelievably brilliantly just subversive and funny and dark, and there it is. I just loved it. So that's a new book that I think it'll be on, I'm confident it'll be on my personal end of the year list. The next list is Demon Copperhead, The New Life, The End of Drum Time, Seven Moons, and After Atlas. This is, I think, unless Emma Newman is the author of After Atlas. So here I'm going to cheat again. I'm going to go with one of my favorite past competitors, a book that I always try to recommend that not a lot of people remember for one reason or another. And it's the book Skippy Dies by Paul Murray, which
looks classic.
I think it's a classic, but it's like you never hear about this thing. It's like a class. I mean, it's like a great coming of age novel. It's sort of a boarding school campus novel. It's a big one. It's got a lot of pages, but absolutely, I see it on my shelf here, and I think of it fondly. Last one, Gods of Want, Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance, Fen Bog and Swamp. I keep my exoskeletons to myself, and then tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Again, a lot of books from the tournament, but here I'm going to lean into a kind of doomed romance theme, and I'm going to go with the classic rather than contemporary, Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Another book that it's on my go-to lists. It's like when people, and it's a book, again, for whatever reason, not a lot of people have read. Like I recommended this to somebody a few years ago, and I said, you got to read Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. And they came back to me, they loved it. They came back to me and said, I can't believe the person who wrote this novel has the same name as the person who wrote The Fire Next Time. I'm like, they have the same name because it's the same person, right? They just didn't know that this would be like, they didn't conceive of it as like a James Baldwin book. But it's you got to be in the mood. You got to be in the mood for a little tragedy and but deeply romantic. I mean, that thing really will get you thinking and feeling about human connection in ways not a lot of other books do.
You will not get through March if you are participating in the tournament books if you are not ready for a little personal tragedy. Your favorite book. And, I have my favorites. They've already been trounced in this tournament. I'm not going to say which ones, but, certain books, it's hard. The heart loves what it loves. And hopefully that is what people take home from the tournament. And that's wonderful. Panelists, any final thoughts or words, because we are reaching the end times?
Can I just say real quick, this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but I know that we've talked a lot about not comparing books to each other and how difficult that is, but the book from this year is the correct choice. It's the best book of the year.
You don't know the winner, Christina.
No, I don't. I know the last two. I'm excited.
Okay. I love this. So one of the last two you feel like is the deserving champion. Amazing. Calvin, last words. Mev, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No. I was just gonna agree. Also knowing, I don't know. I only know what the last two are, and I would be happy with either of them winning. I do have a preference, but either of them would be fine with me. And that's all. I'm glad.
Calvin, last two, how are you feeling?
I have a dog in that fight personally, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna be, I don't know. I think I've already made a lot of people mad with my decision. So I suppose having my personal winner not be the overall winner would serve me right. But I'm gonna shut up now.
I know we all have a Lincoln in the Bardo. John, final thoughts?
Thank you to Christina and Calvin for your judgments this year. I really, really just enjoyed the hell out of them. And Mev and Alana, thank God somebody has stepped in to do some of these commentaries. That's not me. And Kevin, because we got tired of hearing ourselves blather, and it's much more interesting this way. So, and thanks Rosecrans for doing this year after year after year after year. It really is. I can't imagine a spring without it.
That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I will do my final thoughts. Or Alana, I didn't get to hear from you.
I have no thoughts, just vibes. I'm just very grateful. Like, thank you for having me aboard. This is my first tournament of books, and couldn't have gone better. I had so many feelings.
She had a lot of feelings.
Yeah, and it was good to
Rosecrans edited out a lot of feelings.
It was good to process them all with you guys, and I'm so grateful for the judges and their thoughtful commentaries.
Well, this is all gratitude. This is all gravy. Christina, Calvin, beautiful, thoughtful, personal, intellectual, just great judgments. Alana, Mev, killing it, bringing that librarian gusto. It's just the best. And John, we keep going. We just keep going, and, this is year 19, year 25 is around the corner.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready. Think how gray and or bald or wrinkled will be by that time.
Oh, it's going to be extraordinary. I'll throw on a bald cap if I'm not there yet. Okay. I want to say again, thank you to Books Are Magic, wonderful media sponsor, our presenting sponsor, Field Notes, their little notebooks and everything else they make is amazing. To my partner in crime, Andrew Womack, I don't see your face, but you know how much I love you. And to the commentariat, and specifically all the sustaining members, we literally couldn't do this without your support. There is no joke behind that. So thank you to everyone. Love you all. Amali, are you still there? Do we need to do anything to wrap things up?
That's pretty much it. I can say thank you from my end to all of you for participating in this fantastic virtual event tonight. And of course, thank you to Rosecrans and Andrew for reaching out to us and making this partnership happen this year. It's been such a thrill for us as booksellers to follow along, and we will all be waiting in sheer suspense to find out who the winner is this year. I've put that link in the chat one more time for where you can buy any of the books featured in this year's competitions, as well as some of the books from this year's judges. So click that link while it's still up. But otherwise, that's all. Thank you all so much for tuning in and asking such wonderful questions. Yeah, I guess we'll just keep watching and see what happens.
Books are magic, motherfucker. It's the slogan of the TOB. We're stealing it from them. That's it.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks so much,
Bye.
guys.
Bye. Bye.